Hey, I'm Rob, and this is my review of Formbot's new Micron Plus kit. Spoiler alert, it's freaking awesome. One thing, this isn't going to be a detailed build video. First of all, there's other people that are way better at that than I am, and I'm not comfortable enough in my building abilities to present myself as like an expert authority on that. The other thing, there's kind of an old saying in the Voron community that you don't build a Voron, you build your Voron. And similar with the Micron, you don't build a Micron, you build your Micron. So I've did like maybe 9 or 10 mods on this kit that really kind of made it mine. But first, what is the Micron? It's pretty simple. It is essentially a scaled down version of the Voron 2.4. Except it's got all of the like complicated, awesome flying gantriness of the Voron 2.4, scaled down to the miniature Voron VO2 size. It's using the 1515 extrusions instead of the 2020s, which means all the fiddly stuff, like you got to preload your nuts before you close up your blind seals, and it's just a lot trickier to work on than the bigger, more forgiving machines. So the Micron's kind of the worst of both worlds as far as build complexity goes. I kind of do not recommend it as your first printer, though you can make it happen, but expect to do some work. It's kind of a challenging build, but it's also super fun. Like I said, you don't build a Micron, you build your Micron. In the course of building mine, I think I did like 9 different mods, so let's take a look at those real quick. First up, beefy front idlers, designed by Klee. They also work in conjunction with the beefy Z idlers, also by Klee. And the idea behind the beefy front idlers is instead of working against the plastic, you're working with it. So the force of the belts is actually pulling parts together as opposed to pulling prints apart. Another major change from the Formbot bomb was the gantry. This is Hartk's R1 beta gantry, and he was literally uploading STLs to GitHub like as I was downloading them. Like I saw files with an update date of now. Another update I did was Boop, which is similar to Voron Tap, but for printers for ants. So it uses the whole tool head to get at your Z. This was my first time using Boop or Tap, and I love it. I've gotten perfect first layers like every time, and now I want to go back and put Tap on all my bigger machines. Boop's really great. Another update I did was using Galileo 2 standalone extruder, and I paired that with the Dragon Burner tool head. And there's a Fadus Rapido 2, the limited edition magenta one in there somewhere. But yeah, Dragon Burner, Galileo 2 standalone. Another upgrade I did was this fan. The design is very similar to like the Nevermore or the MF Nano, but it was custom designed for the Micron 180 to fit in this channel. This camera design was designed by Hartke to fit these kind of laptop style little USB cameras, and they slot nicely into the extrusion. And I found the 120-degree viewing angle was perfect for the bed. I did replace the included touchscreen with a 4.3 Waveshare capacitive touchscreen. Note that this did also require replacing the included CB1 with a real Raspberry Pi CM4 compute module. And then finally, got these UV matchsticks from a chamois at XR Bunker. And they're in a diffuser case designed by Maple Leaf Makers. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Last but not least, the Rainbow Barf LEDs, which was just a great kind of stealth burner NeoPixel replacement using an LED array in the Voron logo, as well as two addressable NeoPixels down illuminating the tool head. It's pretty sweet. Now that this thing's together and I've got a few hours on it, I just want to kind of talk about it and give you an idea of what to expect and things I thought were really sweet and things that could be improved. If you've seen my earlier video where I unboxed a Trident, or really any Formbot unboxing video, you probably know what to expect by now. It's literally a bomb in a box. In this case, there's no extras really thrown in, nor do you need to go out and buy anything. Like, you can build the printer stock with all the parts that come in this box. And for the most part, like, they were nice, high quality parts, and you kind of got everything you were expecting. There was a little bit of an eye roll when you saw that the Z motors were not moons, and then you go back on the website and see they say, well, the X and Y motors and the extruder motor are moons, but the Z motors are of a slight lesser quality. Not a big deal, as the Z is not flying around, but that is a thing to note. Otherwise, no real complaints. It's the bomb in a box. A quick aside, one of my new favorite pre-build rituals is to sort all of the hardware from the little plastic baggies into a small parts organizer. In this case, it's very much a custom small parts organizer designed to hold just the right amount of screws, like from this bomb. It was based on a design by Modbot, and I'll post a link somewhere down below if you're curious. Another small tip. For my printed parts in general, I printed them in ABS on my tuned Vorons at home, and they came out great. One thing I did to try to save some time was print my no-drop nut carriers and other little accessory prints in PLA at my office on an untuned Ender 3. And I don't know if it was the untuned Ender 3 or if it was just like 4-year-old PLA, but half of the nuts wouldn't go in, the other half required fighting, and basically I just had to end up reprinting these on my Voron at home. So I think the lesson there is no shortcuts ever when you're building a printer. By and large, the build was a super enjoyable Voron building experience, with a couple caveats. First, documentation. The documentation situation was, I don't know if it's because, I was using beta stuff or the adding on the 10 mods instead of just building something stock at first, but the documentation situation was pretty grim. The standard Voron docs are normally pretty good, and in this case, the Micron docs were really good too, to the point that they're finished. They are work in progress, so they do get to a certain point and then stop. In addition to that, of course, you're hunting around for documentation of all of the various mods and whatnot. There were definitely a couple points in this build where I had to stop and take a look at the CAD files, which I normally haven't had to do. Another asterisk, you might want to just grab an assortment of M3 hardware. I mean, that stuff's usually a good idea to have on hand if you're in this hobby anyhow, but I'm glad I did here. While, again, most of the hardware was in the box, some of it was a little off. For instance, the X-Rail hardware, the BOM specified, and the package included M3 times 8 screws. And, we found that those wobbled a bit on the Discord. Switching those out to M3 by 6 made for a lot snugger fit and a much more satisfying X gantry. So, luckily I had spare M36s on hand. And then also, I've had to grab M310s. And again, some of that may just be the various mods calling for things, but I'm really glad I'd spent the $10 on a random assortment of M3 socket head, button head screws. And suggest you do the same too. It's a good idea to just have some on hand for this stuff. As for the wiring, overall, generally it was pretty awesome. Everything was kind of cut to like the exact right length. It was all decent quality, and this time, everything was pretty well crimped. There were a couple of small things. For instance, the Z motor wiring. If you checked the motor spec sheet, the two center wires were supposed to be crisscrossed. In the case of some of us with the early kits, we just had 4 flat black cables where the middle wires didn't crisscross. So we all did have to de-pin and switch those ourselves. So you might just want to double check that. Also, mine came with a 2-in-1 fan splitter for the hot end fans. However, the wiring was reversed. The positive and negative were flip-flopped where they should have been. So it's a really good rule of thumb to just always check all wiring against the pinout and use a multimeter. Even the wiring that comes in the kit, double check it before you plug it in and fry something. A couple other fairly small issues with the supplied hardware. My power plug was super, super, super tight. Like I actually had to shave some of the plastic off for it to fit in. Like I tried giving it the business and forcing it in there really good, and it just would not go without me taking off some of the plastic. And I checked 2 other Formbot kits I had, and none of them had ever had that problem before. So I don't know if it's the power supply supplier or what, but I had a little trickiness there, and I had to like kind of manually shave down that cord for it to go in. Also, the foam tape. It comes with both 1mm thick and 3mm thick foam tape. Neither's quite enough to do a full job everywhere. I had enough 3mm tape for the sides and the back, and went ahead and used the 1mm tape for the top. Not a big deal, but that did mean I needed to print different size panel clips for the top. So just make sure you're aware of what's going where and you print the right clips. If you're printing your own parts, not a problem. But if you're ordering parts from PIF or another provider, you might want to just think real hard about which panel clips you're going to use where. The last bit of hardware news, our early kits shipped with 185mm gantry beam. The R1 beta needs a 180mm gantry beam. So it's a really easy fix. Like if you have any sort of saw at all, I just used a miter saw and it cuts like butter. But yeah, I had to manually trim 185mm extrusion down to 180. The good news is like it's not a visible part, nor is it a part that needs to form a blind joint, so it doesn't have to be perfectly square. If you are going to use the beta gantry, though, that is a thing to be aware of. Supposedly, they fixed this in upcoming kits, but I don't know what's shipping out from where, so just double check. If you're at 180 or 185, you need to be at 180 for the gantry, the beta gantry. One other small bit of feedback about the beta gantry. While the Formbot kit comes with a printed drag chain, I chose to print my own because I wanted a sweet looking one. Unfortunately, it's like exactly 1 millimeter too wide to work with the new position of the beta gantry. So you either need to modify the printed train STLs to fit somehow, or you can just do like I did and go back to using the one that came with the kit. Having said all that, I love this printer. I think Formbot has put an incredible kit together, and it's a really good value. If you're a Voron enthusiast and you've been on the fence about a Micron, there's no better time to buy than right now, in my opinion. I think Formbot's really kind of knocked it out of the park with this kit. If you've never built a Voron, I still think this is a great kit. Just know that it is a bit of a challenging build, and you're going to have the documentation problem. There's a lot of good resources on both the Formbot and the Doom Discord. Anyone building this machine should join both of those. But again, I do think brand new builders may find this a challenge. But yeah, anyone, if you've built a Voron before and you want to go Micron, like, check out the Formbot kit. It's really, really, really good. Speaking of Discord, I do want to thank everybody on the Formbot and the Doom Discords that helped me out during this build. You guys were awesome. And super big thanks to Heart K, who just nailed it with this project. It's the most fun build I've had. Like I said, it's been a challenge, and there were a few small hiccups. Most of those kind of self-inflicted by choosing to build 10 mods at once. But this was by far the most fun build I've ever done. And like I said, I really, really love this printer. And a lot of the learnings that I learned along this kit, I'm going to be doubling back and revisiting earlier builds and doing things like installing tap or, yeah, I learned a lot on this build and I had a lot of fun, and it's a great kit. Thanks, everyone. Oh, finally, in the interest of disclosing stuff, this video is not sponsored and the kit was purchased with my own money. If you want to see more stuff like this, please like and subscribe. Thanks.